They came from all over West Africa, but they were just giving the name Senegalese right from me. After the war, there was a march, a victory march. The French did not want French people to see those Africans, so they sent them back quickly. But they had not paid them. They were paying them less than half of what the French soldiers were getting. But they didn't mind it anyway. If they had not paid them for a few months, so they went and kept them in this place called Tiare. They said they will come and pay you. They kept them there for months. Well, everyone knows you can't keep ex-combatants in a place, in one place. You can't. Because people who have been fighting, they're mentally unstable, you can't keep them in one place. They kept them there for months and months. They said, no, we want to go home. We don't come from Senegal. We want to go to our families. We want them to know we are alive. We want to go. I said, wait. I think they were waiting for something to happen. And eventually it happened. These guys protested. They went on demonstration. They want to fight. They want to force the hand of France to come and release them and pay them off so they can go home. And that was the right time. I think that was what France was waiting for. They brought some machine guns, yes, motorized machine guns, and they machine gunned them down. They shot them down, all of them, well, almost all of them. The ones who survived only did so because they hid under the dead bodies of their fallen comrades. Yes. But even there, the French soldiers weren't looking for any movement. Anyone moves, they shoot you. It was a massacre. It was a terrible, terrible way to repay someone who has put his life on the line for you. Someone who has sacrificed his life to save your country. If you don't want to pay him, let him go anyway. But they didn't want to do that either. They had to kill him. That was one incident that should have taught them that this was not going to end well before they signed the cooperation pact. That was one. And two, the Algerians in the north, they went to fight for France too. But when they came back, many soldiers realized that France had burned their villages and killed their parents. Yes. When they went to fight for France, they burned their villages, not one, not two, many villages, and they killed their parents. Yes, where my dad? They were dead. They killed them, France killed them. Yes. I mean, if you're a young man and you kill your parents, there is almost nothing to live for. The only people you love are dead. Nothing to live for. That is one of the reasons why the Algerian War of Independence took so long and became so bloody. Because you have hundreds of these ex-servicemen, yes, who are trained fighters, and they have nothing to lose. They lost everything, they had nothing else to lose. So they fought and fought and fought until they protected their country. It cost so many lives, more than 1.5 million lives or so. Yes, they just didn't care. You have people who had nothing to lose, they didn't care. Yes, they fought and fought until France left their country. Those are two incidents that should have warned these French-speaking countries that this was not going to end well. The situation is so bad, yes, that it has made West Africa the poorest region in the world. Because in West Africa, out of the 16 countries, about 12 of them are French. And they have some of the lowest GDP per capita. That makes West Africa the poorest region. Yes. And it also makes West Africa one of the most violent areas. Because the countries where they are today, they are so fed up with their treatment. They are so fed up with the poverty that there is a coup every so often. We spoke about the coup belt as the Sahel. Yes, that is one of the most violent areas. Not only because the people know their history, but because they are fed up with what they see. Like me in Sierra Leone, when I saw that, I mean, we shouldn't be asking for economic aid. Sierra Leone was in the economic aid from anybody. We never need economic aid, we don't need help from anybody. Yes, but we do ask for help. And the situation makes no sense to anyone. It just continues on and on. Yeah, so that is what happens. But France puts a puppet, the army overthrows the puppet, France takes out the army and puts another puppet. That's how it goes. So recently there were 3 countries. You had Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Yes, it overthrew their leaders, as usual, 3 of them. But France cannot have that, because the French economy is totally wedged to the exploitation of these countries. Yes. They can't do when they don't have any other ways. That is how they worked for so long. Now these people are saying, no, we will not go. But France has to get real. So how do they do it? They look for the weakest link, which is Burkina Faso. Ibrahim Traoré. Ibrahim Traoré is there in a smaller country. So they're looking for one weak link. Once they remove him, then the other 2 will be scared. They know their time is up. It's just a matter of time before they are removed. So that is what is happening. So in 2 years' time, Burkina Faso has had, Ibrahim Traoré has had 20 attempts on his life. 20 attempts. Because they will not stop. You and I know that they are not going to stop. Because if that continues, and you have 4 other countries, if any 4 countries get away from the French orbit, especially if they include Senegal and Ivory Coast, how will be the French economy gone? The French economy will be toast, they will go overnight. And France is an industrialized first world economy. If that one goes, so will the EU economy. And it will bring down a global recession. Yes, because economies are so interrelated. One person is your customer, the other one is your banker. So you remove one of them, France. I mean, the ripple effects in the economic contagion will be immediate in Europe and throughout the world. That is why the situation is so, it continues like that. And if you look at the EU and most developed economies, they support France. They don't want demand. They don't want demand there because they know their own economics relies on the exploitation of some of the poorest countries in the world. Yes. That is one thing they will not say. Yes. But we know this. Why they have the lowest GDP per capita, they are also responsible for supporting the richest countries in the world. That will be left on the side. What people talk about is democracy. Democracy exploiting other countries, Russia coming to. No, that's not the fact. The fact is the cash. The fact is neocolonialism. Neocolonialism is still alive and well. Yes, that is how it works. So that is what happens in the French-speaking countries. Because why the English took a step back, France did not take a step back. They were full on controlling these countries, full time, including their leaders. To be a president in a French-speaking country, France has to approve of you so that you understand that you are serving France, not your country. Yes, that is how it is. You call you, interview, you agree, and then you can be president. Whether your people die of starvation, whether the uranium mined by Orano poisons all the sheep in the area or all the locals in the desert, they don't really care. They never cared. So that's how they are, full on present. But it's not a common topic. We in West Africa, English-speaking West Africa, we don't know very much about French-speaking West Africa because France doesn't tolerate there is no friendship between us. Yes, they stop all that inter-country relations. They don't. The Cooperation Act means they cannot mix with you. And so up to recently, until I started researching this book, I didn't know about the CFA. I didn't know. Someone tried to explain it to me and it sounded crazy. And only when I read about it, that's when I said, oh, no. So that is the way it is. The last one is the Bretton Woods institutions. The Bretton Woods institution is the modern day major cause of poverty in Africa and the developing world. I'll tell you a bit about these institutions. The Bretton Woods is in New Hampshire. Towards the end of the Second World War, an English economist called John Maynard Keynes, he took a proposal to the Americans and said, well, the war is coming, we need to have a system to rebuild the world economies and restart trade. Yes. The meeting took place at Bretton Woods in New Hampshire, a town called Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. So they agreed, and the proposal they agreed was to form an institution that took care of short-term budget deficits, short-term payments, short-term loans, and that was the IMF, International Monetary Fund. And why the IMF took care of short-term balance of payment deficits? The World Bank took care of long-term development loans and long-term development projects. So those two organizations were there working together. And there was a third one, the International Trade Organization. The International Trade Organization was supposed to deal with international trade between countries and see how settle disputes and see if new countries were allowed into it or when they were allowed. It was called the ITO. The ITO, it was all agreed, and then there was also going to be an international currency used for international trade. Supposed to be called the Banco. Yes, but the Americans didn't want that. They wanted the dollar to be used. But previous to that, at that time, the world reserve currency was the pound. Before then, it was the French franc, and before then, it was the Dutch currency, before that Spanish, and then the Portuguese. Every time these countries had problems. Yes, it was a good thing because you borrowed at very cheap rates. It was always in your favor. I mean, it was an advantage to have your money as the world reserve currency. But eventually that advantage became a disadvantage. So instead of going through that, they said, let's have a neutral currency, the Banco. The Americans said no, they wanted the dollar. Right. The ITO also was proposed and it started for a short time. But the first treaty they made was not ratified by the United States. The United States disagreed with the proposals. Instead, they formed the General Agreement of Trade and Tariffs, GATT, G-A-A-T. And they got 8 European countries to sign up to it, 8 countries, other countries to sign up to it, including Canada, England, France, Belgium, Holland. Yes, they signed up to that, and that became the de facto trade organization. Yes. So that was what was happening. As time went on, GATT became bigger and bigger and bigger, until it morphed into the WTO. But one thing that you need to understand, these institutions, especially the World Bank and the IMF, worked pretty much as they were supposed to do. You see? up to the 70s. They helped Europe rebuild their economies. They loaned money to Europe, and Europe rebuilt their economies. Yes, until they were strong. But two things we need to understand that is that, well, one thing, these did not have the rest of the world in mind. It was actually meant for what is now the global north. It didn't have Africa in mind. It didn't have because most of the other world was colonized anyway. So they didn't feature in their thinking. So that is one thing that we need to have in mind. Now, the IMF worked pretty well up to the 70s. After the oil shocks of this 1971 and 73. After that, the direction of the IMF changed a lot. It is now one of the biggest causes of poverty because it gives loans. Now a predatory loan organization. It gives loans to countries and gives them conditionalities. Conditionalities that will make you poorer. Not only in the short run, but in the long run as well. It opens your markets to competition from outsiders who are more developed than you. So countries that were built on protectionism now want to open developing markets for their own products, basically stifling the growth of developing countries, and the IMF is responsible. Right? Lastly, there is also the UN. The UN came much later. As the name suggests, United Nations. Most countries are involved in the United Nations, and so you would think that they are looking after the interests of everybody. If you think so, you're wrong. The United Nations is not looking after the interests of everybody. It looks after the interests of the Western world only. Yes, that is what it does. You can simply look at organizations like the ICC, World Refugee Program, and other agencies. It's not that they are not working in your best interest at all. Yes, that's how it is. Now, so that is basically how poverty is generated. But the trouble with this is that when you get money, someone says steal money is not only immoral advice, it's sound economic advice. Don't steal money. Because if you steal money, one thing that happens to it is that you are going to spend it. Because expenses rises up to meet income. Whichever income you have, your expenses will rise up to that level. Yes. So the London stockbroker, a London merchant banker, we have the same economic problems as a Brixton taxi driver. Because the money you have, your expenses will rise up to meet that. You have the same economic problem no matter where you start from. So these economies, developed economies, have built their economies at the expense of Africa. What happens is that your expenses are now reaching up to that, the money that you've earned. So every day you have to find new ways of exploiting the same person. Yes, then you find another new way to exploit the same person. It becomes an never-ending quest. To a point that some of these countries now have rebels in their countries because the colonial master is finding a new way to exploit you. So he puts insurgents in your country. Now you want to fight the insurgents, you have to call him. Because you can't call anybody, you have to call him to come and help you fight the insurgents, and you have to pay him with your resources, and then insurgents will not stop because he controls it anyway. So this is how it has gone on. That's how poverty has been created over and over in Africa. To a point that now we have new entrants. Today we have China. Today we have Turkey, we have Russia, we have South Korea, we have, these people come, they they come and play along different paradigms, but they are all looking for the same thing. And none of them has the African at heart. They only come to look after themselves. None of them. So that is what is called now the new scramble for Africa, because new people are coming. You have the Indians coming, you have the Chinese coming, yes. They all have different plans. Okay? Yes, so in conclusion, this book, The Plunder, is a book about the developing world and Africa from a financial point of view. Every time you read about Africa, you read African writers are usually literary experts. They write very, very, very well. But someone needs to tell Africa's story from an economic point of view only. Because at the end of the day, the drumming, the singing, the clapping, the dancing, the jumping, we have to stop. So that we sit down and investigate whether there is a future for the next generation of Africans. Because at this rate, there won't be anyone. There won't be one. So that is why I put out my own explanation, so that everyone can read it and draw your own conclusions. Yes. Thank you very much, and I hope you get the book and read it, so that as I go on to give more videos, you will be there with me. Please like and share this video and subscribe. But one thing I'm going to say, which other people don't say, is please don't leave a comment, because I won't be reading any comments. Please. Listen to it, buy the book, like and share, but don't leave a comment. Thank you. Goodbye.